Om Pratarasmarami Hridhi Samspuradatmatattvam Satchit Sukham Paramahamsa Gatim Turiyam Yat Swapna Jagara Sushuptam Abhaiti Nityam Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham Nacha Bhuta Sangaha. I meditate on Ishvara's presence in my life. In the mantra Shanno Mitraha Sham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnururukramaha. By doing namaskara to Ishvara, who is the creator of everything connected to my life. So with this verse, I thank the various forms of Ishvara. Then I turn my attention to the presence of Ishvara in my life. The second part of the mantra, Namo Brahmane. Namaste Vayo. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. I meditate on the presence of Ishvara in my life. Tvameva Pratyaksham. you indeed are directly in front of me. Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi. Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami. I see you in front of me, and may I see you your presence for the rest of my existence. I meditate upon the presence of Ishvara in my life as karma phaladata. The giver of things and results in my life, appropriate to what I deserve. I see the presence of Ishvara in the form of things that are given to me. Karma phaladata. Data means the giver, the source from which things come from. And karma phala means these things that are given to me are not arbitrary. They are given to me based on my actions in the past. May I see the presence of Ishvara in observing the things given to me. The foremost amongst the things given to me is life. I should see the presence of Ishvara in the form of life given to me. Life which in Shastra is called pranaha. And pranaha is the presence of life given to me in the form of Vayu. An oxygenated air which becomes life for me. I should be able to see this directly and obviously. I should see this mechanism given to me. The oxygenated air called Vayu and the mechanism to process it within the body and mind, which is also given to me. So taking an inventory of things given to me starts with life. This is indicated in the mantra Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi. I see the presence of Ishvara as the giver of life. There is no other source of life. It is not human beings. It is not any natural phenomena. It is the inherent nature of Ishvara in the form of Brahman, the conscious entity. I meditate upon the presence of Ishvara as the giver of everything that I have, starting with life. Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi. Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami. Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi. Namaste Vayo. Namaste Vayo means I cognize again and again the presence of life in the form of Vayu. I meditate upon the entire set of things given to me, starting with pranaha. If I touch any part of my body, I see the body given to me. Carefully given to me to conform to what I deserve. If I think about all the physiological parts that support the body, I see the presence of the giver. The beating of the heart, the mechanism of blood in the veins and arteries, upholding the health of the body. I see the parts of the body given to me. I see it as a processing plant, processing food, eliminating the waste, supporting the health of the body. The entire physical body as being given to me. I see my subtle body given to me. My ability to perceive, my sense organs, the organs to respond given to me. The ability to know, to think, to distinguish given to me. Memory, buddhi, knowledge of things given to me. meditate on the presence of Ishvara in my life, directly as a giver of making me as a living being. Om. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanno Mitra Shamvarnaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, tanmam avatu, tadvaktaram avatu, avatu mam, avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Yaschandasa Mrishabho Vishwarupaha Chandobhyo Dhimritaat Sambabhuva Samendro Medhaya Aspranotu Amritasya Devadharano Bhuyasam Shariram Me Vicharshanam Jihva Me Madhumattama Karna Abhyam Bhuri Vishruvam Brahmanav Koshosi Medhaya Pihitaha Shrutam Me Gopaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Aham Rikshasya Reriva Kirtif Prishtam Gireriva Urdupavitro Vajiniva Sramitamasmi Dravina Savarchasam Sumedha Amritokshitaha Itirtishankor Vedanu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Apyayantu Mama Angani Vakpranaschakshuh Shrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirteyo Upanishatsu Dharmaha Te Mai Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vang me manasi pratishtita mano me vachi pratishthitam avir avir ma edhi vedasya maani isthaha shrutam me ma prahasihi anenadhitena ahoratran sandadhami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmam avatu Tadvaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhadram no api vataya manaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhadram karnebhihi shrunuyam devaha. Bhadram pashyema akshabhiryajatraha sthirairangaistuštuvagum sastanubhihi vyashema devahitam yadayuhu swasti na indro vriddhashravaha swasti nah pusha vishvavedaha swasti nastarkshyo arishtanemihi swasti no brihaspatirdadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yo Brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedamscha prahinoti tasmai tam hadevamatma buddhi prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapatye. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so let's continue on with the fourth chapter, the last chapter of the Gaudapada Karika. And in reviewing the notes from Swami Paramarthananda, he had made this point as this whole text is now finally coming to an end, that Swami Paramarthanandaji calls the Gaudapada Karika as the highest teaching of Vedanta. And so, coming from him, that means a great deal, and we should really pay attention to that. So to me, what that means is, when you think about what do you mean by the highest teaching of Vedanta? So to me, what it means is that the clarity of self-knowledge is very subtle. It is not obvious. So by that you can see what do you mean by subtle and what do you mean by not obvious. By that one can see that, for instance, To see an object like a table, it is pretty obvious. Why? Because to see a table, all you need, not an all you need, but really all you need, is your eyes. Your set of eyes. This is a big thing. It's not an ordinary thing to be able to have eyes. And not only the mechanism of the eye, but the entire structure of the mind and sense organs and the ability to see. So it's not an ordinary thing, but nevertheless, this is the beginning of seeing some object like a table. So in that sense, it is not that subtle. All you need to do, even whenever a baby is born and the baby is, you have to say, baby, this is table. You give it a name and you ask it to touch it, and the baby is a little saying table or some other language, whatever language, maze in Hindi. And so then after a while the baby knows that, and it's not the very thing. But now this is not just a table. It has to be appreciated in more subtle forms. And the first thing you can do, you can just take your ordinary set of binoculars. You know, binoculars, of course, are to look for long distances. Let's say a microscope. So you take a microscope and you take a piece of wood and you put that in. Now what you will see is a different aspect of the table. Where it looked very smooth on the surface to the simple eye, under the microscope it will begin to see some crevices. It's the same thing, but you have a different view of it. Now if you increase the power of the microscope, where I'm just visualizing, I haven't done this on my own, but I can see how this could be done. You can now see not only the rocky crevices of the wooden surface, but you can begin to see some gaps. So you have some, so now you have a very high-powered microscope. Now if you begin to increase the subtlety of the instrument, so here what we should think about is that my assessment of something is based on the kind of instrument that I have. So the eye is the beginning of the instrument. But then you can have some external aid of the eye with the help of microscope, etc. And so then you now have, and this is not the end, this is just, you're still looking at kind of like a funny surface. It reminds me, sometimes Swami Dayananji had said that he was taking the verse in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 15th where he says, Mattav Smriti Apohananja. And so both the recognition and the forgetfulness. And the forgetfulness is just as important as recognition. So for instance, the reason I'm saying that is that Swami Dayananji once had mentioned, Ishvara is very kind to you because you look at your hands and you look at your skin, which is, as you grow older, is pretty bad. I'm beginning to see all the problems on the skin and so on. And it's a recognition of my older age. But still, it's pretty bad, pretty nice. Swamiji says, do not put this under a microscope. You know what we'll see? You will see bugs crawling on your skin. You'll see a lot of activity and it'll be horrifying. You think this is my own body, this is just me, there are a lot of stuff happening inside of that. And you wouldn't even want to, you don't know what to do. You don't want to be anything to do with the bugs, but they are there. So apohanancha means the Lord also has given us the ability to not see, very appropriately. Anyway, coming back to the tour of the subtlety. So our view of things depends very much on the subtlety of the instruments by which we are measuring. And so if we want to just complete this example, if you were to keep on looking at a table through finer and finer, more subtle instruments, finally, I don't know what they are, electron microscopes, atom smashers, I have no idea, all those kinds of physics things. But eventually you will see nothing but space in between. You hardly see any solid particles. You don't see any particles. So atom smashers and so on, you see nothing but space. Very interesting. Just from an ordinary science, the development of science, you can see the same thing is more and more, it reveals a different aspect of it. That's all. So very similar to that is what I was saying when Swami Paramarthananda says that the Gaudapada Karika is the highest teaching of Vedanta. So as we have been studying and we will continue to do, this is the subtlest view of myself. And here, the instrument of knowledge is my mind. It is not just the microscope and electron microscope and all those kinds of instruments, eyes, but it is something which is to be grasped by the mind. And we know the grasping of the mind doesn't mean that it's an object. In fact, the grasping of the Atma is from understanding the Shruti Vakya Neti Neti Iti Adesha. That it is not this, it is not this, it is not this. Meaning that it is not the, you should see that the entire prapancha, which includes my own body as well as the rest of the world, is nothing but a reflection of myself. So it's like saying, not this reflect. You are not the reflection, you are not the reflection, you are not the reflection. You are not this reflection, you are not that reflection. So that's why it is repeated twice, neti neti. So there the Shastra says, it talks about you are not the Sthula Sharira and you are not the Sukshma Sharira. Or some interpreters, both the interpretations are correct. Other interpreters have said, one is you are not the observer and you are not the observed. You are the Sakshi that looks at both the observer as well as the observed. So that is the neti neti. Anyway, what I'm saying is that to complete this concept, that when it is pointed out that the Karika is the highest teaching of Vedanta, it means it is seen through some very fine thinking. And what it means to us, this is really the crux of it, is we should not immediately say, this is not true. Because it says, what Karika has been saying, which the Upanishad has been saying, and the Karika repeats it, is that really everything that you see is not true. It is just some kind of a projection without any truth. It's some kind of a pattern, but the real thing is you. This is what it is saying. Now I don't see that yet. So when we say the highest teaching of Vedanta, I don't see it yet. So by that it means if I keep tuning my mind, and tuning my mind means educating it, step by step looking at it, then I find that the eventual view will be this. So if I say that if I see it's by the highest teaching of Vedanta, doesn't mean no, I don't understand this at all. Of course I don't understand it yet, but like a scientist, this is where Shraddha comes in. I often give this example. Really, this was very important for me when I first understood it. That Shraddha means that there is 99.9999% space everywhere. There is no particles. Very, very few. You can't even find the particles. In these atom smashers, these big machines and so on, they can't even find them. They have to smash it and then quickly take a picture because it disappears. So that's the final view of the whole world. So now if you had a high school student and you say, I don't believe any of that. If the teacher says to the high school student, listen, this whole world, this whole table is nothing but space. You can see two boys and girls looking at each other and says, huh? Is this for real, really? No. But you know what? The teacher who's been teaching in high school, even the teacher of the high school may not quite understand it. But there is Shraddha. That if you keep on really looking at it, if you have all these high-powered, sensitive instruments, you will see there is nothing going on. And so this is a Shraddha. So our attitude, the reason I'm pointing this out is that the Karika is the highest teaching of Vedanta, where it says that the mithya is never began. We have a hard time understanding it. How can you not begin? Because it began, everything begins. In the final analysis, nothing begins and nothing ends. It just stays there as it is. And by looking at the neti neti, it says, you are the reality that is giving it the reality. This is the highest teaching of Vedanta, which I don't get yet. But my Shraddha should be, this is what I need to understand. So this is what I've been saying that for a while, that this is the marker for this is exactly like, I think, remember we had talked about this in, I think, the 3rd chapter of the Karika. And this was still when we were teaching in Milpitas, that this topic came about Sankalpa. That then the Sankalpa is gone. Sankalpa means a sense of, I should do this. This would be nice to do. When everything is gone, all the Sankalpas are gone, you are fine the way you are. Just enjoying whatever life gives you. This was the discussion. So there I had said that it's not necessary that you have that viewpoint today, because many of us are busy with our household things and so on and so forth. It's very difficult to appreciate, how can I just not do anything? I am the doer, I am the enjoyer is a very natural way to look at it. Eventually though, time will come when I will just be by myself. So the Jivan Mukta's case is that you are so in tune with yourself. In fact, it is written somewhere, it is in the Panchadashi, this says, and I think Swami Paramarthananda also talked about it in various stages of Jivan Mukti, where even eating is not necessary. It's a botheration. to eat, and then you have to eliminate it, and then you have to eat again, and so on and so forth. It says, I don't need any of that. Let me be with myself who I am. I am just a conscious principle, conscious entity, not a principle, conscious entity. That stage will come for all of us. Whether it comes in this state, this life, or next life, we don't know. It all depends on how much we deserve. But that is the reality. That just like with the instrument, you see nothing but space. Table looks like a space for a scientist. Therefore, similarly to a jnani says, what? This nothing is going on here. This is just like a show. This is what is meant by the highest teaching of Vedanta. And we should at least have that picture in our mind. We don't have to see that today. We are probably not capable unless you guys are some amazing close to being a jnani, which you may be. You may be. Chances are it will take us a little while of knowledge, training, and so on, but that is the eventual view that is going to come. And so, here, Swami, I think Paramarthananda ji had said that just like, for example, to a beginning student of, I just took the example of the table, just from my own thinking. Just like in the table, to a beginning physics student, you will not be given electron microscopes and atom smashers and so on, because that will come later. It will maybe come in the university and postgraduate and so on. But in the beginning, it's very possible that somebody would be given a microscope, simple microscope, and you see that this is not a smooth surface. It's got all kinds of crevices. And so similar to that is the situation where the junior student of Vedanta is not taught. This is why it's called the highest teaching of Vedanta. It is not taught that there is nothing here. In fact, it is said, listen, and this is how we all started. When I started with Swami Chinmayanand, we were just grasping at the very basics of our life, and we talked about karma, the different kind of karmas. So what it means is that you are a person, what's called jiva, and we have, just like we talked about in the meditation, that due to your past karma, a lot of things are given to you. So the past karma means sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, agami karma, all those things are given to you. You are a jiva and you are at the mercy of a lot of background. It's kind of like, you are the tip of the iceberg showing. But underneath the water, there is a lot going on. And it slowly presents itself as prarabdha karma. Different situations are given to you, and you have to deal with it. And so this is the basic aspect of it. This is the junior student, high school student. You're not given like electron microscopes or anything. You just take a simple microscope and you say, wow, I can't believe it. This is not a simple surface. It's got all these crevices and rocks and so on. That itself is a wonderful thing. So simply here our understanding that, my gosh, there is a sanchita karma, then there is a prarabdha karma, there is agami karma, and there is a karma phaladata, all of those kinds of things at the very beginning. Then it is said, my dear, through jnanam, your status as a jiva is also negated. You remember we used to talk about you as a jiva and then having all the karmas and future and what you need to do and dharma and adharma and all those kinds of things, gone. Because it is kind of like, you remember you're talking about dreams, and remember the kind of dream that you had and you were going this and that. It doesn't matter. Gone. All gone. And so there is no jiva, there is no karma, no nothing. It is just you, the Brahman. You, the Atma. So this is the advanced student of Vedanta. So here also, as we studied earlier also, that even in the Vedas, see this creates, I think I'm just repeating myself, I need to go on, there's a lot of other stuff I want to do today. Oh my gosh, it's already 9 o'clock. Anyway, I won't even go into that. Basically what I was going to say was that all this Karma Kanda and Upasana Kanda and Jnana Kanda, it looks like it's an opposition. It is not an opposition. It is a teaching which is appropriate to the type of students. That's all. But the highest form of teaching is when you say there is nothing going on. Anyway, so this is what is being talked about. So let's finish. I want to finish 77 through 80 at least today, because we need to get going on this. So in these verses, what is talked about is, Gaudapadaji says, here is the benefit for a person who has received and assimilated the teaching presented in all these verses. That the entire world is mithya and you are the adhisthana. And if you don't get it, please think about it again and again and again. If you still don't get it, wait for a while. It will come. And so these verses are all in with respect to that you are the Turiyam. There is only one Turiyam in the world, which has to be you. It is Paramatma and Jivatma, there is only one conscious entity in the whole world, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which is you. Cannot be, and so what about this? When this is seen to be nothing but my own reflection, my own copy, that's when the truth will prevail for me. Until then, I should keep this vision in mind and keep following all the aspects of the vision. It is very much like when we were talking about the sankalpa. I didn't finish that thought, that's why I wanted to do that now. It is very much like it's a journey. It's a very funny journey, because Swami Tattvavedananda also has pointed out it's a very funny journey, because this is not a journey where you have to go somewhere. It's a journey where you have to wake up where you are. So, unlike this sudden wakening up from the dream to a reality, this one requires some work, but basics are still the same. So what it means is, it's like a journey where I am told, how will I know that I have reached it? So there the markers are given. Markers are, this is how you will see. This is like, like a big rock. Just like when you go to Southern California, there is a big hill where it says Hollywood, I think it says. Hollywood written on the mountainside. Somebody has carved in the old days, Hollywood. So it's like saying, okay, if you're traveling from San Diego and you're on route number, whatever it is, I think it's 405, you would have pretty much crossed Los Angeles, and traffic will get better when you see the sign called Hollywood. And so you keep looking, and I don't see any Hollywoods, I don't see any Hollywood. Suddenly you say, yes, there it is. Okay, I'm on the right direction. I've go to San Francisco, yeah, and I'm almost done with the city, and now traffic will get better. Yes, it is correct. Very similar is the case here, that these are markers given to us in our journey. That's all. And then you will say, yes. They'll say when you get better at your understanding, you will see that things do not bother you as much. They don't have the hold on you. And there comes a point where many of you, I've been getting, thank you for many of you that have written back to me. I appreciate that, and I would encourage everybody else to do it. I'm really very happy to know your life, and many of you have said this, that amazingly enough, I feel better about myself. I am not reacting the way I used to before. Marker. This is a Hollywood marker. Exactly what it says. That when we are looking at the world as a reality, everything matters to me. And you're not going to suddenly look at the world as non-reality. That's not going to happen yet. That's the end of the journey. But what will happen is, slowly, what things used to bother you, trivial things that used to bother you about what people say about you, situations, your worry, and so on and so forth. All this will come in the next 4 or 5 verses. You'll be amazed. I'm not bothered about it anymore. Good. You're right on the right direction. So here, in verse number 7 and 77, let's just go specifically. I do not want to leave this class until verse number 80 is done. So in verse number 77, Animittasya chittasya yan utpatti samadvaya ajatasya eva sarvasya chittadishyam hi yadyataha. So the English translation of that is the non-origination of consciousness, which is free from the cause of birth, and which alone is in the form of everything, is eternal and absolute, because that birth is indeed an apparent object of consciousness, which is birthless. And so here the adhyastha and adhisthana, in technical terms, one which is adhyaropa and the apavada is being presented, that listen, all the things that are changing by nature are mithya. So in terms of connection to our meditation today, if I had a little bit more time, I wanted to go over that as well, but I can do that now. That anything which is given to me is changing and therefore mithya. That's the truth. The only thing which is not given to me is me. I. Sometimes I use the word me for ahankara, but I. That is not given to me. That is what I am. This is what Parameshwara's nature is. But everything else is given to me. And I am the adhisthana of things that are given to me. These are like sophisticated ornaments on the gold. So this is what verse number 77 is basically saying. Here Swami Paramarthananda makes an interesting observation. He says that moksha Moksha means a sense of independence, a sense of I am done, I am free, is not given to me. I don't need the God's grace for moksha being given to me, but I need God's grace to give me the understanding that my nature has been moksha all along. So, in that sense, there is nothing to be done, there is something to be known. So that's verse number 77. Okay, now if we go to the next one, which is verse number 78. I think in the interest of time, I won't even go through the Sanskritam and translation. I'll just give you the gist of it. So the English translation of that is, having known the absence of causality to be the fact, and not acquiring separately any karma which is a cause for birth, one attains the goal which is free from sorrow, desire, and fear. And so here, here one, I think a very, very important and useful interpretation of this, and a very good advice, practical advice given by Swami Paramarthananda in his various teachings and so on, is that in nature of complaints in my life, the form of complaints in my life is an indication that I do not have moksha yet. And the reverse of that is that if I learn to accept things as they are and not complain about them all the time. And you know what the complaint I'm talking about is not the external complaint. External complaint is only one form of it. And we see this all the time where people will say, oh my gosh, oh good. Take our fires in the California and the whole US is going through some extraordinary, this is quite a show by Ishvara with COVID, and then we've had some hot weather. We had this shower of lightning which I have never seen in my life. I cannot believe for several hours during the night, there were 10,800 lightning strikes that happened 1 week ago. And out of which 500 fires have been started. And it is, even this morning when I woke up, unfortunately I think we have at night time, we keep our door open and a fan coming in. And I have to really think about it because it gets too hot at night. I don't want to run the air conditioner. And so I have to close it because this morning I really woke up with, I'm asthmatic anyway, with really having difficulty in breathing. So there is smoke everywhere. Lots happening. And, but you know what? So we may have some, there may be a lot of external complaint. I see some of the people around me and so on saying, my God, this is ridiculous. Why is this happening? And, so on and so forth. For every external complaint, we have an internal complaint. All the time. I wish this would not be happening. I wish this would be like this. And then we'd come down to people. I wish that person would behave better. I wish this situation will not be there. I wish. This is a complaint. And I think what we should do is to be aware of the fact that every complaint, internal or external complaints, I think I would imagine that most of you that are students of Vedanta are not externally complaining. You're not going around and saying, I don't understand what's happening. You're not doing that. And from your letters and so on, you're not externally complaining about things. If you have to deal with something, deal with it. That's a different thing. But internally, you're not saying, oh my gosh, I'm upset about this. I wish this will be different. So this is called Bhavasagar, where you're always trying to be something that you are not. I wish that this thing will not happen, so I'll be happy with me. Do not spend any time complaining to yourself. Forget about others. Others will also tell you, because they want to complain, but they don't want to hear your complaint. So that's a separate thing that can be settled easily. But what I'm talking about is internally to yourself. Get into the habit of really understanding that the complaints lead to nowhere. Internally to yourself. I'm also under the same situation, COVID, etc. But you know what? Deal with it. And if I die, I die. I go to the next life. So what? But this is Ishvara's doing, and I just I should understand that I am free from all this. And I cannot understand that I'm free from all this until I stop complaining. Stop the internal, natural way of complain. Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, I have many many people that I know in the village that he was growing in who would be walking around talking to themselves. They are nobody, just to themselves. I don't understand why this is happening. This should not be happening. Why is this? That person is so stupid. I cannot believe he did that to me. They're just talking to himself all the time. Swamiji said this was amazing. They're not saying it to anyone but to themselves. They're making that into a reality. So anyway, going back to what Swami Paramarthananda was saying was, the greatest benefit of the understanding of the basics of the Karika are that all complaints of life are gone. We visualize moksha. My God, what is moksha going to be like? How I wonder how Ramana Maharshi must be feeling, and he's free and so on and so forth. You can do that too. And you will do it at one time. And a very good marker of that is that your sense of complaints are gone. It doesn't mean that you're ecstatic about everything. It doesn't have to be that way. It'll come. Ecstasy will come. But a good marker is where a sense of complaints about everything. Beautiful points. I really appreciate this from Swami Paramarthananda. And so in fact he makes it, he says, complaint equals samsara. It's in your hand. It's in your hand. And here he says that that if there are some things that you want to get off, leave it to Ishvara. Have a dialogue with him all the time. Like for example, even I also say, what's going on here, Ishvara? You must be mad at us or something. And we smile at it and just let go. Anyway. And some other thing that Swami Paramarthananda had said was that really speaking, anatma means the entire projection around us, is never secure. It can never be secure. It's always changing. It's waiting for some kind of a security. And the Atma is never insecure. It's not possible. Even if you say, you know what, I want to be really insecure. You can't. So here's the situation. Anatma cannot be secure. Atma cannot be insecure. What do you want to be? You are looking for security amongst things that by itself is insecure. Foolishness. Well, what do you want me to do? Well, what we want you to do is to discover the security that you are. That's all. Very simple. Well, I don't know how to do that. Well, study. See the very whole nature of it. The more Shravanam you do, you will see that you are secure. Well, no, I have studied it, but I really don't get it yet. So do some thinking. I've done thinking and this, okay, then, take up Buddhism maybe, Jainism, Christianity. Try it. Go. What can you do? Is it the truth? Stay on this path. Anyway, it's number 78 and 79. Indeed, that consciousness engages in a similar field of duality because of the obsession with unreality, duality. Having known the absence of objects alone, he turns away from detachment. And so, this is continuing on the same theme as the looking for things that are secure amongst things that are basically insecure. So here, Swami Paramarthananda references the question of Arjuna at the end of the chapter 2, or towards the end of the chapter 2, the beginning of Sthita Prajna. As you know this very well by now, he asks Krishna, wow, you paint a picture of a Jivan Mukta, which is very attractive to me. And I didn't know that it was possible that you can be free while you are alive as a human being. And Krishna says, yep, that's exactly right. You can be a Jivan Mukta. So Krishna says, tell me, Krishna, how will I recognize a Jivan Mukta? What he really meant to say was, how will I recognize that I am a Jivan Mukta? So this was the verse number 54. How does he talk? How does he sit? And what are the signs of it? Does he have a long beard? This is the interesting thing that I see is, this is actually good. I find that many of these teachers, they want to become really impressive to the students. So they don't know how to, because the students have to recognize their thoughts, which will take a while. But in the meantime, their dress is very impressive. And what are some of the names of the people that are popular here these days? I forget this name, the guy who's got a big, long beard. And the other thing is, I find that many of these teachers, they have a headgear. So, nobody wants to be looking like a bald man. And so they have some kind of a headgear which looks very attractive. And then they have this long beard. And they have a way of talking which is very quiet. The reason... Now I remember seeing, in fact, the person I'm thinking of is this guy called Sadhguru. A lot of people have written to me and saying, what do you think of Sadhguru? So one of them sent me a video of Sadhguru. And I watched it. This is about a 6-minute video, about a couple of months back. And it was really interesting. He was talking about karma and karma phala. And he gave a long-winded answer, which really was not pertinent to what the subject was, and so on. He was talking the truth, but the way I think he was saying, yes. So anyway, Arjuna was asking, how does he look like? So Krishna's answer to him is both surprising and disappointing. Because what Krishna said. He said, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan arthan manogatam atmani eva atmana tushtaha stita pragyate uchyate. Krishna says, basically, when your complaining nature is gone, and this is a skill in some cases. Somehow our feeling is that if I keep complaining, then I will keep the focus in front of me because this is not right. It shouldn't be happening. I'm justified in complaining. I'm justified. So unless unless I complain, nobody listens to me. So I have to complain. This is what the obsession is. Yeah, look at this. I tell you, this is wondrous. So in there is a word called obsession in 79. Which one is that? Sorry, just 1 second. Yeah, abhuta abhiniveshat. So this is the obsession. So we are obsessed with our complaints. I'm putting some concepts together from various areas. We are obsessed with it. We think that we have to complain. This is natural for us, and I will try to improve, but what do you want me to do? I can't not complain. What I want you to do is to understand that non-complaining is possible and it is very pleasant. Why? Because you are okay the way you are. You are just used to complaining. This is what samsara is. And Jivan Mukti is not something out there with Raman Maharshi only. But just the sense that you let things go, let Ishvara take care of your problems. Here Swami Paramarthananda has been saying so beautifully, and really all of them, Swami Viditatmananda ji and everyone, he says basically what you need to do is to bring Ishvara into your life and let him take care of the problems. You should be you do what you need to do. But don't really worry about it. Don't complain about it. Is it possible for me to get rid of it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we would not be saying it unless it was absolutely possible. Because just acting out in life, in responding to situations and so on, that's okay. That's not an issue. But the kind of residue left in your mind, the vasanas, a sense of dissatisfaction. This is what samsara is. And that doesn't need to be. You just take care of things and go on and whistle through life. That's what we have to do. So that was number 79. I'm late, but I better finish 80 as I mentioned. He says, at that time, the state of that consciousness which is withdrawn from the existing activities and not engaged in fresh activities means no more new sankalpas. Wouldn't it be nice if we moved to a different place? Would be nice if we bought this house, a new car, etc., etc. Sankalpa, sankalpa, sankalpa. It is indeed undisturbed. It is of the nature of Brahman, which is uniform, unborn, and non-dual. This is accessible to the wise only. And so here Swami Paramarthananda gives this example of the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse number 70. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvadatma tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarvehe sa shantim apnoti nas kama kami, etc. And he does a couple of other things. So I think we're getting late, so we better wrap up. At least I've reached up to verse number 80, which I'm happy about. And now we will continue to wrap up this important text, and we will review the Upanishad itself after this. As a general review of everything, including Karika and the Upanishad, mostly the Upanishad. I'll keep it short, and then we will complete this section. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Go Brahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyah Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Shobharahitaha Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I think we will not have time to answer your questions, so please forgive me for going a little long. I would look at your questions later, and if there's some things that I need to respond to you, either specifically to you, I will do so, or if the question is of a more general nature, then I will send it to others as well, or maybe wait for the next class to do so. So we will do that. So have a good week, and we will see you later. Om.